round one of the 2019 Asian Winter Series. This is a brand new championship for F3 regional single-seaters. Here we are for the first round here in Buriram. There will be 3 races. The first race is about to get underway in about 20 minutes time. We'll have race 2 and race 3 tomorrow. Then next week we go to Sepang in Malaysia for round 2. There'll be 3 more races there, and then we'll have the final round, round 3, also in Sepang at the end of February. So 3 rounds, 9 races, and plenty of points to be won. There are plenty of opportunities here to get some all-important FIA super license points. The winner of this series will be granted 10 points, second place will be granted 7 points, third place 5 points, and these points are very important indeed for drivers looking to progress up the motor racing ladder, progressing into faster cars and higher categories of racing. We see the cars beginning to line up on the grid now. And one of the interesting drivers here, and probably the favourite, is Dan Ticktum, the British driver, who will be in the number 27 car. He's not there just yet, but you'll see him very soon because he's on pole position for this first race. He was the winner of the FIA Formula 3 Macau Grand Prix this year and last year. He's in pretty rarefied company to win that race twice. And he will be competing later on this year in the Super Formula Series in Japan. That's not quite been confirmed just yet, but it does look very likely that he will be spending 2019 racing in Japan. I spoke to him earlier this morning, and he said he was very confident about his chances this weekend and in this Winter Series as a whole. He's definitely the most decorated driver on the grid, and he'll be hoping to wrap up the series title. And one of the reasons that he does want to race here this weekend, or indeed why he does want to race in the Asian Winter Series as a whole, is to get those all-important super license points. He was in contention for a Formula 1 seat at Toro Rosso this year, but he was stymied by the fact that he was 5 super license points short of being eligible for a Formula 1 ride. Now, if he wins the Asian Winter Series, that gives him 10 points towards his super license total, and that obviously will be very, very useful indeed. So Dan Ticktum on pole position for race 1 and indeed race 3. And the grid order for race 2 hasn't been decided yet, and that will be decided by the lap times that the drivers post in race 1 here today. We had qualifying earlier today. 2 sessions. The first session decided the starting order for this race 1, and the second qualifying session decided the order for race 3, which will be the final race later on tomorrow afternoon. All the cars coming onto the grid now. Dan Ticktum, the number 27 car, the high-tech Grand Prix entrant, will be in pole position, but just behind him, less than a tenth of a second behind him, was the number 16 car of Ye Yifei, the Chinese driver in the Absolute Racing entry. And he was just, as I said, less than 1/10 of a second behind, and that's a very impressive time for the young Chinese driver. In third position on the grid will be the 21 car of Rinus VK, the Dutch driver, and there we saw a quick shot of Dan Ticktum, now having taken his place on pole. On the right-hand side of your screen there, the car on the left is the Chinese driver Ye Yifei in the 16 car. In third position, the number 21 car, Rinus VK, also in the high-tech stable, as is the fourth place car, Alessandro Giretti, the French driver, and he has the number 1 car for this weekend. In fifth position is Eshan Perez, and we will hear from Dan Ticktum shortly. I spoke to him earlier today. He said he was very confident about his prospects for this weekend, and indeed for the season as a whole. And he's down there on the grid with Feline now. So let's hear more from what Dan Ticktum has to say about this upcoming race.
Hi, Dan. Congratulations for the pole position. Yesterday you had a little bit of difficulty, but today you got 2 pole positions during the 2 qualifying sections. How confident you are for today's race?
Well, I would say the The only thing I've got to worry about is the start, really. I think the pace is good enough to pull away from the others, but, you know, it won't be easy, so I'm just focusing on the lights.
那刚刚呢，我是问丹，因为他昨天呢赛车出了一点点的问题，所以说呢，不过呢，今天呢，他在2个排位的章节呢都拿到了第1名，都排到了第1。今天呢也是第1位来开始比赛。我问他有多大的信心，那么他呢也是说自己非常的有自信。虽然是第1次来到这个5里南的赛道，但是呢他很有信心，今天拿下冠军。
Well, very nice of Dan to give us an interview on the grid there when he's already strapped in with his helmet on. And as he said there, just a little bit worried about the start. And it'll be very interesting to see how he and the others pull away. This is obviously the first race of the season in what is a brand new championship. So there is certainly an element of the unknown about this event. Ye Yifei there on the left-hand side of your picture. You can't quite see him. Lots of people milling around and everybody just doing the final preparations, making sure everything is A-OK. Dan Ticktum on the right-hand side there looking very purposeful and ready to go. There we see another view, and that's what the drivers will be looking at. A short burst down to turn 1. It's quite fast, and you can see a lot of runoff there on the left-hand side. So a few drivers there in qualifying were cutting the corner a little bit and having their times disqualified. But let's have a look now at the starting grid for this first race. There we see Dan Ticktum in pole. Alongside him, Ye Yifei, the Chinese driver. Final preparations there being made. Everybody strapped in now. And this is a great shot. You don't often get to see in single-seater racing. You don't often get this close to the grid, this close to the start of the race, but it's good to see the drivers all getting ready there. Rinus van Kalmthout, to give him his full name, widely known as Rinus VK, obviously much easier to say. The number 21 car, he's in 3rd position. Alessandro Gueretti in the other high-tech car, the French driver in the number 1. He's there in 4th, just receiving a little bit of attention, maybe getting strapped in and final preparations being made. 5th position, Eshan Pieris, the Sri Lankan driver, the number 15 car. And alongside him is the number 29 of Akash Nandi, the Malaysian driver in the Pinnacle Motorsport car there. His mechanics just maintaining a watching brief, making sure everything is okay. Final preparations being made and good luck wishes obviously being made there as well. You can see the halo on the front of the car there, that's mandatory. And that's to protect the driver's head in the event of a collision. Here's number 65, David Schumacher. He's the son of the ex-F1 driver Ralph and nephew of the 7-time F1 world champion Michael. He drives for Pinnacle Motorsport, and alongside him is Tomoki Takahashi, the Japanese driver racing for the Super License team in the number 81 car there. You can see his mechanics just taking away those, which are basically just glorified leaf blowers to help cool the mechanics down inside the car. Number 2 car here, Pavan Ravishankar, racing with the British license, and he also in the high-tech Grand Prix stable, and alongside him is the Hungarian driver Vivian Kestei, racing for Black Arts Racing, the number 7 driver. Deep in conversation with her mechanic there, as you can see. And it's nice to see how low down the camera is there, and that's the view that the drivers get. When you look, it looks very easy, but when you can see from the driver's eye view, it's very low down indeed, and it's very difficult to see what's coming up. But here's number 28, Tairoku Yamaguchi, a little bit older. He's racing in the Masters category. And bringing up the rear is number 88, Amaury Cordale, the Belgian driver who had a bit of trouble in qualifying and didn't really set a representative time in the first qualifying session. So for this race 1, he'll be bringing up the rear. So 12 cars on the grid for this first race of round 1. Next week in Malaysia, we're hoping to have a few more cars and then a few more in the final round in Malaysia at the end of February. And we saw there towards the end of the grid in 10th position, the Hungarian driver Vivian Kestei in the number 7 car. And Vivian is down there talking to Feline now. Let's hear from her.
Hi, Vivian. Great to see you. Nice female drivers on the grid. So how do you feel to compete with another boys?
Yeah, it's really nice to be here. This is my first experience in Formula 3. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm here to gain as much more experience as I can.
Okay, good luck with the race. Yeah. 那刚刚呢，我是问 Vivian， 那么她作为一个本场的唯一的女车手来这个比赛，感觉是怎么样的？她说她也是非常的开心，也非常的荣幸，能够和一些非常高水平的车手同场竞技。
Yes, interesting to hear Vivian there talking about how this series will be a good opportunity for her to get experience. For a lot of these European drivers, there's not really a lot going on in the winter months. It's too cold really to do any racing between about November and about February or March in Europe. Obviously in this part of the world, in Thailand, and then next week and later on in February in Malaysia, there's no such worries about the temperature. It's a balmy 30 degrees here in Buriram. And it's also a good opportunity for drivers, young drivers like Vivian, to get experience in some machinery that they wouldn't perhaps have driven before. As Vivian said there, it's her first time driving an F3 car. She spent the last couple of years driving GTs and driving tin tops. So single-seaters is a bit of a different kettle of fish. So Vivian there, along with all the other drivers, looking forward to this first race here of round 1 of the Asian Winter Series. Final preparations being made. Most of the mechanics and everything off the grid now. And these 12 cars will go for a race that will last for half an hour, as will race 2 and race 3. So a nice little sprint there. You see the drivers facing the first corner, and this track is nice and wide, and there's lots of good overtaking opportunities. Perhaps not through turn 1, because that's a rather fast corner, but turn 1 leads onto a very long straight indeed, with turn 2 almost flat, and then turn 3 a big hairpin, lots of overtaking opportunities at turn 3. So especially for the first few laps of the race, when the cars are likely to be bunched close together, that's definitely something to watch for. Lots of runoff area as well. So if the drivers go a little bit too deep, or lock their tires up, or lock their brakes, and fail to stop in time, then they should still be able to carry on in the race. You see the mechanics all leaving the grid now, and the cars on the grid now ready for the race start, for the first ever race in the Asian Winter Series. You'll see the lights at the top of your screen going red one by one, and then when those lights go out, then we'll be underway here in Buriram. There we are, the lights going green, and this is for the start of the formation lap. So this isn't the race proper. You can see the cars filing away now. Dan Ticktum in the lead, followed by Ye Yifei, Rinus VK, and the rest, all piling through turn 1. And this is a very important part of the racing process, the formation lap there, as you can see at the top of your screen. And this is where the drivers make sure all their temperatures are up. You can see them weaving from side to side there. That's to make sure they get some temperature into those tires, because those tires don't work very well when they're cold. So you'll see the drivers weaving this way and that, trying desperately to get some temperature into those tires. They'll also be testing their brakes as well, because you don't want to go into a race with cold brakes and cold tires, because you'll lock your tires and brakes up and you'll spin off and you'll get nowhere. So very important indeed to make sure your tires and brakes are of a good temperature, and just making sure everything's ready, all the setup is exactly as the drivers want it. And this is a good early opportunity just to have a nice look at this Buriram International Circuit. A very, very wide track. You can see there on the right-hand side, lots of runoff there. So that should hopefully promote some good racing, because if there's lots of runoff, then if the drivers do make a mistake and go a little bit too deep, then they can carry on. If there's no runoff at all, then drivers are sometimes a little bit more circumspect about making a lunge down the inside when you're trying to overtake the driver in front of you. But when you've got a nice bit of runoff, as you can see there, then the damage is a little bit less if you do make a mistake and run a little bit deep, or perhaps even spin the car. The drivers all bunching up nicely now. Amaury Cordale at the back there, bringing up the rear, weaving this way and that. There's number 28, Tairoku Yamaguchi, the Japanese driver, in that light blue car. And now the drivers come round to take their place on the grid. Dan Ticktum already there in his pole position. Ye Yifei on the left-hand side. And interestingly, he's pointing his car a little bit towards the center of the track. So when the lights go green, or when the red lights go out, I should say, it looks as if Ye Yifei is going to go towards the right-hand side of the track as we look at it here from our camera. And that is the optimal racing line. So maybe he feels that there's not a lot of grip on the left-hand side and he wants to get to the right as quickly as possible. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens when the race does start. You see the 5-second board going out there, and now the 5 red lights are on. And they're out, and we go racing here in Buriram. And it's a good start from Dan Ticktum on the right. Ye Yifei slotting into second position. Is he going to go up the inside? Yifei going up the inside, and Dan Ticktum has just held it. But they both go wide. A lot of drivers going wide in that first corner there. And it looks to me, Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum side by side, but Ye Yifei has got the lead. So Ye Yifei making a better start than Dan Ticktum there, but Ticktum not giving up, going around the outside here of turn 3. This is where there should be some good overtaking opportunities, and it looks like Yifei has just held it. Dan Ticktum locking up there and going a little wide, and has dropped down to 3rd and maybe down to 4th place. So Ye Yifei, a tremendous start. He's in 1st position there. It looked to me as if Dan Ticktum is down in 3rd place. Yes, he is. He's got the inside line for this left-hander, so he should be okay. But number 16, Ye Yifei in 1st position. Rinus VK, number 21, in 2nd. Dan Ticktum there, 3rd. You see him locking up again there. A rather scruffy lap from Dan Ticktum. He said to Feline on the grid that he was worried about the start. And it's not been the best opening lap so far for Dan Ticktum. But Ye Yifei there, sitting pretty in 1st position. And I believe that's Alessandro Giretti in 2nd place there, the number 1 car. So a very good start indeed from the French driver. There we see some action further down the grid. 29, that's Akash Nandi. And here they are all filing through. Not too much in the way of incident in the rest of this lap. That's the 65 car of David Schumacher there. And as they go through into the final corner there, that's Ye Yifei to complete the 1st lap. So Ye Yifei will be leading the race. Alessandro Giretti there, as you can see on your timing screen to the left there, in 2nd place. A very good start from Giretti, up from 4th on the grid. Dan Ticktum down to 3rd. Rinus VK in 4th position. And it'll be interesting to see Dan Ticktum working his way through. He was on pole position and clearly the fastest car in qualifying, and now he's down in 3rd place. And he'll want to get past because he will feel, I think, that he's quicker than the guys ahead of him. And he's going down the inside of Giretti now, and he's got him. And that's a very good move from Dan Ticktum, but Giretti's not giving up, hanging around the outside. These cars are fairly small, so... And here we have a replay of the start, and it looked to me as if Ye Yifei just got slightly better drive, slightly better traction off the grid there. Dan Ticktum went a little bit wide, as did Ye Yifei, but he got on track again sooner and clearly got a bit of momentum, and that's Dan Ticktum, and he's off. Dan Ticktum, we didn't see what happened there, but clearly a little bit of a spin, and Dan Ticktum now way down the order. You can see him there. I think he's in about 6th or 7th position. There's Ye Yifei in the lead, and Dan Ticktum there, you can see him down in 5th place. So it's not been a good opening couple of laps for Dan Ticktum. Clearly he tried to get past Rinus VK and came off 2nd best, and now he's down in 5th place behind, I think, the number 29 car of Akash Nandi. There we see the 88 car of Takahashi, and it's all very tight in the midfield at the moment. 29 car of Akash Nandi, followed by Dan Ticktum there, as they go through to begin lap 3. Ye Yifei still up front, Giretti in 2nd place, and his teammate Rinus VK now in 3rd place, the number 21 car that you're looking at there. In 4th place still Akash Nandi, and Dan Ticktum down in 5th, and he hasn't made a move stick yet, but I wonder if he might throw something down the inside of this turn 3, but he's a little bit far behind to do that yet. The top 3 all still in the same formation. Ye Yifei leading, Alessandro Guiretti in second, and in third place, Rinus VK. So the race settling down a little bit now after a rather exciting opening couple of laps. And that is the number 65 car of David Schumacher, followed closely by the 15 car of Eshan Pieris. There we see the 29 car, that's Akash Nandi, and Dan Ticktum all over the back of him now, closing up, and I wonder if he might fancy his chances. Maybe a little bit too far, but you can see he's very close behind there now, and I wonder if going into the final corner, turn 12, if he might fancy a lunge up the inside. There's a lot of good overtaking to be done at turn 12. There's a long straight before, and then it's a very tight right-hander. So if you get good traction out of turn 11, and Dan Ticktum, he's just having a little look. I don't know if he was serious about a move there, but perhaps just making sure that Akash Nandi knows that he's there, and maybe trying to pressure him into a mistake. And he's got the slipstream there now. I wonder if he's close enough for a move up the inside, but meanwhile, we look there at Alessandro Guiretti, the number 1 car, in second place. And Dan Ticktum in the back of the picture, you can see there still in 5th place. Ye Yifei, the leader there, coming through into the hairpin at turn 3, followed by Guiretti in the number 1 car and Rinus VK, and Dan Ticktum now going up the inside, and he makes that move stick. So Dan Ticktum back into 4th position. I don't think Nandi is going to get back at him. No, he's not. So Dan Ticktum now with a little bit of clear air. He's got a big gap between him and Rinus VK in 3rd place, and I'm sure he will want to put the hammer down there, but Akash Nandi not giving up. Weaving all the way behind Dan Ticktum there, but I think Dan Ticktum will have enough in the tank to keep Akash Nandi at bay and eventually start to pull away and close up onto the number 21 car of Rinus VK, who is in 3rd position. Ye Yifei, the Chinese driver, the number 16 car, still in the lead. There you see Dan Ticktum going through in the 27 car, and all the rest. That's one car to the side there. I believe that's Yamaguchi, the number 28 car, and it looked as if he was pulling off. So one car to the side there. But meanwhile, up at the front, it's still Ye Yifei in the lead, but Guiretti getting very close there as they go through this final corner. I wonder if Guiretti will be preparing himself for a lunge up the inside, perhaps not here at turn 1 because there's not really much of a braking zone, but maybe if he gets good drive out of turn 1 here and follows in the slipstream of Ye Yifei, he might fancy his chances through turn 3. This track is very wide, as you can see there, and these cars are very narrow, so there's plenty of overtaking opportunities here at this Buriram International Circuit, but Guiretti looks as if he's a little bit too far behind to make a move there. You see the drivers taking a very wide line in. That seems to be the preferred way of negotiating that corner in these F3 cars. But Ye Yifei still holding the lead. 23 minutes to go, as you can see at the top of your picture there. But Guiretti getting closer and closer all the time. And all this is good news for Dan Ticktum, who will be hoping to get to the front as quickly as possible, because while these two cars are squabbling over the lead, then they're going to be losing time. Because when you're trying to overtake somebody, or when you're trying to defend against somebody from behind, you're not necessarily taking the racing line. You're going more defensive, going up the inside rather than taking the racing line. Here we see a replay, and that looks as if it's fairly terminal for the number 81 car. I think that is, yes, Tomoki Takahashi, the Japanese driver. Some sort of failure there, but meanwhile, at the front, it's still Ye Yifei in the lead, but Guiretti going very, very close there, and a little lock-up, clearly getting very impatient, and Rinus VK, Guiretti's teammate, getting ever closer in the back of those leading three. Dan Ticktum a little bit further behind in 4th place, but still plenty of time left, 22 minutes, no need to panic just yet. And as I said just now, while these 3 cars, or well, 2 cars, but probably soon to be 3, because Rinus VK might be joining them very soon, and Guiretti going for a look around the outside, Ye Yifei going defensive, and I wonder if Guiretti's going to get better drive out of that corner, but it seems as if Ye Yifei has managed to hold it, but Guiretti now going to the right-hand side, pulling out, and now to the left, and a little bit of weaving going along on the straight there. This is very good racing between these two, and Ye Yifei has just held it. So Yifei still in 1st position, but Guiretti looking increasingly impatient trying to get by. And now you can see Rinus VeeKay coming to join the party as well. Yifei went a little bit wide there, and Guiretti's going up the inside. And they get very close, but it looks as if... Oh, they've both gone wide, and that looks as if, to me, as if Rinus VeeKay now is going to take the lead. So Rinus VeeKay now, Guiretti and Yifei squabbling over the lead, and both went wide, and Rinus VeeKay is now the new race leader. But Alessandro Guiretti very close behind in second place. And all of this is good news for Dan Ticktum, because he's getting ever closer to this group. Guiretti, very impatient, clearly trying to get his lead back, or the lead that he feels that he should have had going around the outside of the last corner, but he'll have a job getting by there. They both go wide. This is tremendous racing here. And Dan Ticktum now looking very racy in third position behind Yifei, pulling out there to the right. Rinus VeeKay still holding, but I think he went over the curbs a little bit there, and Dan Ticktum going all the way around the outside. Tremendous stuff between these four. It's a real ding-dong battle here in Buriram. Rinus VeeKay still at the front there, Alessandro Guiretti, and Dan Ticktum going to the inside and taking them both up the inside. A little bit of sliding there. And Rinus VeeKay back in the lead now. This is tremendous stuff, these cars passing and repassing. These young drivers, they've got a lot to prove. They're clearly young and hungry. Rinus VeeKay going defensive here, going to the inside, Dan Ticktum to the outside. And they go in side by side. Rinus VeeKay still at the inside, Dan Ticktum going around the outside. Bit of curb hopping there from Dan Ticktum and a big lock-up, and it looks as if Guiretti is going to take that second position. So Dan Ticktum down to third place now. Yifei going around the outside in fourth, just maintaining a watching brief at the moment. But at the front, it's still Rinus VeeKay in the 21 car. Yifei having a little look up the inside of Dan Ticktum, but deciding against going for a little move there. Dan Ticktum still in third place with Yifei in fourth. And hardly time to draw breath here in Buriram. It's been tremendous racing for the last 3 minutes. Rinus VeeKay still in the lead. Alessandro Guiretti in second place. Must be wondering how he's not in the lead. He looked as if he was going to get past Yifei, and just when he managed, or when he thought he managed to do that, then Rinus VeeKay stole out the inside of both of them to take the lead. Then Dan Ticktum came back to join the party. It seemed like everybody was passing everybody else for about a lap. And now it's settled down a little bit more with 18 minutes to go. Rinus VeeKay in the lead now. In second position, his teammate Alessandro Guiretti, and third place Dan Ticktum, and in fourth place Yifei. Here they go through the hairpin at turn 3. Tremendous overtaking opportunities here. Lots of runoff areas, and you can see that the drivers have not been scared to use those runoff areas. They need to be a little bit careful, because during qualifying, several of the drivers had some of their times deleted for exceeding track limits. And that's exactly the sort of thing that's been going on over the last few minutes with these top 4 drivers, all passing and repassing, going inside and outside and every which way. Dan Ticktum there in third position, the 27 car. And behind him, Yifei in fourth place. Still Rinus VeeKay, the number 21 car, in the lead, and his teammate Alessandro Guiretti in second place, the number 1 car. Yifei, the number 16 car, who took the lead at the start. He started second, took the lead from Dan Ticktum and held it for the first few laps of the race. And then the 2 high-tech motorsport cars managed to leapfrog him. Further down the grid there, that's the number 29 car of Akash Nandi, who was ahead of Dan Ticktum for a couple of laps. There we are, the number 16 car of Yifei in fourth position. And things have just settled down a little bit now. There was hardly time to draw breath around 5 minutes ago, when it seemed like every corner we had a new race leader. But for the time being, Rinus VeeKay still sitting pretty in first place, with his teammate Alessandro Guiretti in second and Dan Ticktum in third. Yifei there in fourth place, just taking a little bit of a wider line there. And in fifth place, that's the number 29 car of Akash Nandi. So just under 17 minutes to go in this race 1 of round 1 of the 2019 Asian Winter Series. The drivers clearly enjoying themselves. There's a lot of overtaking action to be had here at Buriram. You can see there the runoff areas are plentiful, and the drivers have not been scared to use them. Rinus VeeKay still in the lead, his teammate Guiretti in second place, and Dan Ticktum looks as if he's a little closer this time round, just kicking up a bit of dust. And That is the number 29 car of Akash Nandi, now in 4th place. So Ye Yifei, we didn't see there, but has dropped back a little bit from the leading trio. There we are, the number 29 car of Akash Nandi, who briefly was ahead of Dan Ticktum earlier in the race, and that is the number 15 car of Eshan Pieris. That is Ye Yifei's teammate, but no sign of Ye Yifei. So perhaps a little bit of a problem there for the Chinese driver. We didn't see what happened, but it does appear that Ye Yifei no longer among the leading bunch. That there, the number 15 car, is his teammate Eshan Pieris, now in 5th position. The number 29 car of Akash Nandi there, ahead in 4th place. And the top 3, still Rinus VeeKay leading, followed by his teammate Alessandro Guiretti, the number 1 car, and then Dan Ticktum, the pole sitter, the number 27 car, in 3rd position. There we see the leading 3. Rinus VeeKay going through the left-hander, followed by his teammate there, and Dan Ticktum looking a little bit closer there, and he'll be looking to get as close as he can to the back of Alessandro Guiretti to hopefully pressure the French driver into a mistake. It's never easy to drive when you see another car weaving in your mirrors this way and that behind you. It's one thing concentrating on the race ahead of you, and when you've got to concentrate on the guys behind you trying to get past as well, then that's another thing to concentrate on. And sometimes all of that can get a bit much. But so far, Guiretti holding his own in 2nd place, and Dan Ticktum just dropping back a little bit there. And Dan Ticktum dropping back a lot there. In fact, it looks as if he may be in a spot of bother, because he's pulled off, yes, he's going into the pits there. So Dan Ticktum into the pits, and this does not look to me as if it's a scheduled stop. You can see there in the top right of your screen, being attended to by his mechanics, and it doesn't look as if Dan Ticktum is going to finish first in this race 1 as he was hoping to after all. He's just pulled off into the pits, and that doesn't look good for Dan Ticktum. But up at the front, it's still Rinus VeeKay, the number 21 car, and his teammate Alessandro Guiretti. And a bit further down the grid there, that was Amaury Cordeel just negotiating turn 3. We look at the 2 leaders there now. And I should think Alessandro Guiretti would be breathing a big sigh of relief that he no longer has Dan Ticktum breathing down his neck. And now he can get on with chasing down his teammate Rinus VeeKay. The 2 of them there in the same shot. And just because they're teammates doesn't mean that they're going to be nice to each other. Both of them young and hungry and want to win and want to prove themselves in this Asian Winter Series. A nice close-up shot there of Alessandro Guiretti as he looks to close down his teammate Rinus VeeKay. So Guiretti there in 2nd position, Rinus VeeKay coming through now to start another lap of this Buriram International Circuit. You can see on your screen there at the top, just under 13 minutes to go. And the top 2 drivers over the start-finish line now. Akash Nandi up into 3rd place as a result of those issues for Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum. The number 15 car, Eshan Pieris, in 4th place now. And the race proceeding in good order now. A little less breathless than it was perhaps 10 or 15 minutes ago. But further down the grid, there's still a little bit of racing, and that is the number 2 car of Pavan Ravishankar looking to go around the outside of Amaury Cordeel. Cordeel just holding the position there. Turn 3 really does seem to be a good spot for overtaking. This track is very wide and these cars are very narrow, and Ravishankar going for another bite of the cherry as they go on this straight down to the kink at turn 4, this left-hander, for braking hard to the left-hander at turn 5. Ravishankar still a little bit too far back to make an attacking move there, and there we can see Dan Ticktum's car, the number 27 in the pits. Ticktum out of the car, and unfortunately it looks as if his race here is run. So no points for Dan Ticktum in race 1, And the Englishman will be very disappointed with that. He was talking earlier on today about how much he hopes to win this series, to win this championship, and no points in this first race will certainly do him no favours whatsoever. And there he is. Well, he doesn't seem too downhearted about his failure to finish in this race one. He clearly enjoyed himself out there. But unfortunately for Dan Ticktum, no points in race one. Meanwhile, back in the race, Rinus VeeKay, the number 21 car, and Alex Guiretti, his teammate, still running line astern, first and second place. And Rinus VeeKay just pulled out a little bit of a lead now. And the two of them have quite a substantial lead. You can just see Akash Nandi, the orange and blue car in your picture there. And he's now fighting for position with Eshan Pieres. And here we're riding with Rinus VeeKay going through the left-hander at turn 5 and then turn 6. This is the tight, twisty portion of the track. Not much in the way of overtaking here, but then as the track starts to open up into this area, turn 9, you can see Alex Guiretti going through now. Here we see Guiretti again. You can see this is the rather twisty portion of the track. Not much overtaking going on here, but now the track starts to open up a little bit. And here they are. There's a short burst of acceleration here before braking hard down to turn 12. A nice bit of runoff there for those wishing to overtake. Ralf Schumacher on the right-hand side there, father of David, who is in the 65 car. And Ralf pays very close attention to his son's career. Obviously here this weekend, supporting and offering moral support and guidance. We're back with the leading two now. Rinus VeeKay in the high-tech Grand Prix entrant. And just over 9 minutes to go now in this race one of the first round of the Asian Winter Series. Looking a little bit further down the grid and going through turn 3 now. That's the 88 car of Amaury Cordeel. And it looked as if he was going slowly through there as well. And perhaps another technical issue for Amaury Cordeel. But it looks as if, it's hard to tell on this straight, but it looks as if perhaps he's going back up to speed. Maybe he just missed a gear or something coming out of the corner, but it looked as if he lost drive, but then regained it. So let's hope Amaury Cordeel still in the race there. Meanwhile, this is the battle between Eshan Pieres, the number 15 car, and the number 29 car there of Akash Nandi. The blue and yellow, the blue and orange car, very distinctive there. But Akash Nandi not quite close enough to make a move up the inside of Eshan Pieres as they go through that last corner to start another lap. Just under 8 minutes to go now. And still Rinus VeeKay, the number 21 car, up at the front. His teammate Alex Guiretti in second place. Here comes Rinus VeeKay now through the right-hander at turn 3. And now onto this second long straight, which leads onto the kink at turn 4. And you can see the undulation there here at this Buriram International Circuit. It's not as flat as it might seem. There is a little bit of elevation change, which does always make for some interesting racing. But Rinus VeeKay there, coming through this tight back section of the track, followed by his teammate, Alessandro Guiretti. And really, it's all been plain sailing for these two ever since Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum had their technical issues. We'll wait and see exactly what was the problem there. But Dan Ticktum shouldn't be too disheartened, and neither should Ye Yifei, because the grid order for race 2 will be decided by the lap times from this race 1 rather than by the finishing positions. So Dan Ticktum will hopefully as far as he's concerned, not be as far down the grid for race 2 tomorrow morning as he might have been if the grid was decided by finishing order. Because unfortunately for him, obviously he had that problem. You saw him in the pits earlier, and he was unable to finish the race. As a result of that somewhat attritional first half of the race, here we are, the number 15 car, Eshan Pieris, now up into 3rd position, and a little bit of a lock-up there from Akash Nandi, the number 29 car, going into that tight right-hander at turn 3. And he wants to be careful that he doesn't do that too often, because if you lock up your tyres like that, then you'll get a flat spot on them, and that will make it very difficult to handle. And the car will start bumping up and down, almost like a 50-pence piece. Because instead of having a smooth surface all over that tyre, there'll be a big, horrible flat section, and that won't make it easy to drive at all. So Eshan Pieris coming through, the number 15 car in 3rd position there. And Akash Nandi just dropping back a bit there after having had that big lock-up at turn 3 just a few moments ago. So Pieris on his own at the moment, not really challenging the front two of Rinus VK and Alessandro Guiretti at the moment. Here we see Pieris going through to start another lap. The number 29 car of Akash Nandi just behind him. And the number 5 car of Ravi Shankar there, just coming through into your picture as well. And he's followed by Amaury Cordale, who's made up some places. He started last on the grid after some technical problems in qualifying, which meant that he wasn't able to set a representative time. But he's come through fairly well and now sits in 6th position, helped a little bit by those car issues for Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum, who were at the front earlier on in the race. So just under 4 minutes to go now, and it does look as if it will be a 1-2 for the high-tech racing team. Rinus VK has held the lead for quite some time. And there we see Alex Guiretti, the number 2 car. Alex Guiretti there going through in your picture. There we get some lovely close-up shots here at this Buriram International Circuit. And you can see the halo design on the top of the car. That's mandatory to protect the drivers' heads in the event of a collision. Lovely close-up shot there of the halo on Alex Guiretti's car. Alex Guiretti, the number 2 car, going through in past turn 1, just under 3 minutes to go now. And Rinus VK, his teammate, just ahead of him there, still in 1st position. So the high-tech Grand Prix team will, I would think, be very satisfied with their afternoon's work here today. It looks as if those two will be finishing 1st and 2nd. And coupled with those problems that we saw earlier in the race for Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum, then that means that Rinus VK and Alex Guiretti will be picking up some very useful championship points indeed. And poor old Dan Ticktum and Ye Yifei will be coming away from this first race with very little to show for it. But of course, it's a long weekend, 2 more races tomorrow, and plenty of action here to come at Buriram this weekend in the Asian Winter Series. Not long, of course, until the 2nd round, which will be taking place in the very next weekend at Sepang. 3 more races there. And then the final round, after a little bit of a break, will be at the end of February the 23rd and 24th, and that will also take place at the Sepang International Circuit in Malaysia. So 3 rounds of this Asian Winter Series and 3 races across each of those rounds. So plenty of racing still to be had. We've seen 12 cars on the grid today. We're hoping for around about 15 or 16 cars next week in Sepang, and then for the final round in Sepang, hopefully a grid of 20 cars. Obviously this is a new championship and still a lot of unknowns, but it looks as if with only 40 seconds left to go in this first race, it looks as if the Dutch driver Rinus VeeKay will be coming through to win the very first race of round 1 of the Asian Winter Series. Rinus VeeKay, who usually plies his trade in North America. He was the 2018 Pro Mazda champion, and clearly gaining some useful experience here in the Asian Winter Series. You can see the board there. This is the very last lap. So Rinus VeeKay starting the last lap in the lead. His teammate Alessandro Guiretti in second place, but it looks as if he's a little bit too far behind to make a bid for first place here. Perhaps just settling for second place and living to fight another day. There's plenty more racing still to be had here this weekend. 2 more races tomorrow. But we ride now with Rinus VeeKay on what looks like his victory lap. Going through this long straight after the turn 3 hairpin now. You can see the elevation change. They go down the hill here to the little kink at turn 4, a little left-hander, before braking hard down into the left-hander at turn 5. Now through to the double left at turn 6, and then a quick squirt of throttle before the right-hander at turn 7 now. Now another short straight before the right-hander at turn 8. And then this very quickly turns into turn 9 and 10, this little right-left, right complex, which leads on to turn 11, and then this final straight before the hairpin at turn 12, the last corner. Here we see now, and Rinus VeeKay coming round turn 12, the last corner of the track, to win race 1, round 1 of the 2019 Asian Winter Series. His teammate Alex Guiretti coming through in second place. Rinus VeeKay punches the air in delight. Clearly very pleased with his afternoon's work to win the first ever race of the Asian Winter Series. Coming through in third position there, that is Eshan Pieris, number 15 car. In fourth place, the number 29 car, Akash Nandi. In fifth position, Pavan Ravishankar, the number 2 car. And all the rest coming through to take the checkered flag now. Well, certainly some very close racing indeed early on, as we see some of the back markers coming through. That's the number 7 car, Vivian Castei, followed by the Japanese driver Tairoku Yamaguchi. And they're coming through to take the checkered flag now. Well, some extremely exciting racing in the first portion of that race. Hardly time to draw breath. The first 4 of Rinus VeeKay, Alex Guiretti, Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum all trading blows, passing and repassing, going inside, outside, and using all the track and a little bit more in some cases. And then, unfortunately, we saw some technical issues for Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum, which took them out of the running and left these two, Rinus VeeKay, who you see there, and his teammate Alex Guiretti, to finish in a fairly comfortable 1-2 for the high-tech Grand Prix team. The drivers just going down on their cool-down laps now. There we see the race winner, Rinus VeeKay, punching the air with delight as he passed the start-finish straight. All the cars now filing into the pit lane. And I wonder what Alessandro Guiretti will be thinking, because he was looking as if he was going to take the lead from Ye Yifei he made a move and then went off the track, and then Rinus VeeKay managed to steal into the lead that he wasn't to lose. And that looks as if it's Tairoku Yamaguchi's car, the number 28 car, that's just pulled off there. Hopefully nothing too terminal, and hopefully he can take the grid for tomorrow morning's race 2. You see the marshals there running to make sure that that car's all right and push it back to safety. But all the other cars now back into the pit lane and ready, no doubt, for what will be a very interesting debrief with their teams and their engineers and their mechanics. You see the cars all being wheeled in to the garages there. And Rinus VeeKay, the race winner, must be very happy with his afternoon's work. But I wonder what his teammate Alex Guiretti will be thinking, because on another day this race might have been his. He was in second position behind Ye Yifei and looking very, very close indeed behind him. But as he went to overtake, got a little bit wide, and that left Rinus VeeKay, who had been in third position, left him with the opportunity to take the lead that he was never to lose. So perhaps some of these drivers, a little bit of youthful exuberance and perhaps a little bit overeager to impress. You see there Rinus VeeKay climbing out of his car. And let's have a look now at some of the highlights of this race 1. You see Dan Ticktum there on the right hand side, got a decent start, but Ye Yifei on the left going side by side, forcing Dan Ticktum wide. They both went wide around that turn 1, and then Ye Yifei had the inside line and then went ahead on this straight as they went up to turn 3. Dan Ticktum looking to go deep around the outside. Lots of good overtaking opportunities here. Ye Yifei held firm, Dan Ticktum locked up, and then lost another couple of places. And that's when Ye Yifei took the lead. Some close racing there. The number 16 car of Ye Yifei going a little bit wide, and that was Alex Guiretti going side by side. And they both go wide here, and that left Rinus VeeKay up from third position into first place. And he was not to be headed throughout the rest of the race. Alex Guiretti there settling into second place, looking up the inside of Rinus VeeKay, but the Dutch driver just holding position with Dan Ticktum. A little bit of rallycross there, going up the inside, sliding all the way. But Rinus VeeKay with the inside line there, with much better drive out of that corner, managed to hold the lead. Dan Ticktum there into second place. Then further down the grid, some good racing between Cordale and Ravi Shankar. Ravi Shankar in the number 2 car there. Cordale, who started right at the back, had to work his way up. And from then on, really, it was plain sailing for Rinus VeeKay, who established himself in the lead, and he was never to lose throughout the rest of the race. His teammate Alessandro Guiretti bringing up the rear in second place for a very satisfying 1-2 finish for Hi-Tech Grand Prix in this race 1, round 1, the 2019 Asian Winter Series. So there we see the top 3 cars on the grid now. Lots of mechanics and engineers on the grid there. And a very exciting first race of the Asian Winter Series indeed. Lots of overtaking. The top 4 cars passing and repassing each other. These cars, of course, all the same chassis, all the same engine. So in theory, it should be all down to the driver. Dan Ticktum, the pre-race favourite, and indeed the championship favourite, not having a very happy time of it. A little bit of a scrappy start. We saw him going down to 5th position, working his way back up to 3rd, but then suffering a car failure, unfortunately. There we see a lot of the drivers, a lot of high-fiving, backslapping and congratulation. Of course, this is new territory for everybody. This is a brand new racing series. So it's all about just finding your feet. And these drivers, a lot of them in the fairly early stages of their motorsport careers, obviously eager to impress and eager to hone their racecraft. I spoke to Dan Ticktum earlier today, and he said that these cars, he feels, are very good for honing the racecraft of a driver. You can see the podium there, just in the background, where we'll see the top three. And there you can see the official classification, Rinus VK, or to give him his full name, Rinus van Kalmthout. Winning the race, Alex Guiretti in second place. In third place, Pavan Ravishankar. And those will be the top three that we'll see on the podium in due course. Well, plenty of exciting racing going on today, and we'll hope for much more of the same tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Two races tomorrow, race 2 and race 3 of this first round. Every round in this Asian Winter Series is a triple header, so there's plenty of on-track action to be had. And Rinus VK, the race winner, will be the one to step onto that top step of the podium there in the middle. And he's become quite used to winning lately. Over in America, where he plies his trade, last year he was the Pro Mazda champion. And that is part of the American racing ladder, which leads ultimately up to the IndyCar series. So Rinus VK, only 18 years of age, but has 2 years experience racing in America. And so interesting that he's chosen to drive in the Asian Winter Series and trying perhaps a slightly different type of competition. So Rinus VK winning this first race. His teammate Alex Guiretti in second place. And now we'll move to the podium to see the first three drivers. There we see the top three drivers. Rinus VK looking very pleased with himself in the middle. Alex Guiretti to his right, looking a little less satisfied, as well he might. He might be feeling that this could have been his race. And then in third place, Pavan Ravishankar. But Rinus VK winning this first race, looking very pleased indeed, as well he might. Alex Guiretti there, looking a little bit fed up and perhaps wondering what might have been. If he'd been a little bit more patient, perhaps it could have been him standing on that top step. And Ishan Perez in third place there, and looking pretty happy with his lot. And that is Davide De Gobbi, the series director of the Asian Winter Series. And Tairoko Yamaguchi there, the winner of the Masters category of the Asian Winter Series, round 1, race 1. Davide De Gobbi, I heard from earlier today, and he said he was very confident about having more drivers on the grid next week in Sepang, and then more drivers still later next month for the final round, which will also take place in Sepang.
Okay, drivers, shopping time!
And in the time-honored tradition, which happens in motorsport categories everywhere, all over the world, nice to let off a bit of steam with a few bubbles at the end of the race. Alex Guiretti clearly not as good at spraying the champagne as Rinus VeeKay, but no doubt he'll be hoping that he gets a lot more opportunities to do that later on this weekend and later on in this Asian Winter Series. Still 8 more races to be had and plenty of action to take place. So the drivers now making their way back across the grid to the pit lane, and I'm sure that for many of the drivers there will be much to discuss with their engineers and their mechanics. A lot of congratulation going on there for the top 3, but for some of the other drivers, notably Ye Yifei and Dan Ticktum, I dare say there'll be a lot of debrief with the engineers. We saw a few what appeared to be failures on the car, so no doubt the engineers and the mechanics will be working doubly hard to make sure that those failures don't happen again. Well, that's all for the first race of round 1 of the Asian Winter Series, but we'll be back very shortly with the press conference with the top 3 drivers. So do stay with us.